Hello and welcome to, sadly, the last session of this year's Politico's Agriculture and Food Summit. And this is going to be an interview, and our guest, the last guest today, is going to be Mr. Taras Kachka, the Deputy Minister of Economy, Trade and Agriculture of Ukraine. Hello, Minister.
Hello.
Hello. So right before we begin, I will just remind everyone that you can obviously ask questions. You've been doing that for 2 days, so you know how to do it and how often to do it. Right now, we are going to use the Slido platform. So just go to slido.com and you can submit your questions there. I will do my best to ask the questions to the minister at the end of the panel. And now we can kickstart our discussion. And let me start with the topic which is probably right now the most interesting for foreign investors, also the European investors, when it comes to the Ukrainian agriculture. And I mean the big land reform that you started this year, actually. So. You know, the Ukraine is often called the breadbasket of Europe. There are 41.5 million hectares of agricultural land. And just to get you an idea, you know that, Minister, but to give our audience an idea, this is roughly equivalent to the area of Germany and Denmark combined. So it's huge. And your government, Minister, you decided to liberalize the market, the selling and buying of this land, because up to now, Ukrainians sort of owned very small parcels of this land, but they couldn't really sell it and buy it. So this is a huge reform. This is also a huge effort from your side. The reform is going to enter into force next year, as far as I remember. But can you tell us what has been happening since you announced the law? There has been quite a lot of backlash from the farmer side. Are they a little bit, calmer right now? Have you managed to convince them that this is a good idea, what you're trying to achieve?
Thank you for the question. I see that you recall our conversation and almost a year ago on land reform. And I think that the land reform is usually perceived as a big start or big bang of the land market, but it's opposite. The land reform in Ukraine, which was undertaken by current ruling party and government and president, is actually the completion of transformation of land to Nova in Ukraine. Since we have currently, before the start of this stage of land reform, we had already more than 7 million of private person owing average about 7 or even less hectares of land. So we are the nation of small owners, and we have a big share of state land, which still belongs to state or state institutions and local communities. And we had a really block of turnover of land, which negatively influenced the efficiency of agriculture in Ukraine. And it led to the situation when farmers, or big or small, different farmers, they only can lease land, so that they cannot own it forever. Therefore, they cannot take capitalization for the capital for their business. They cannot be in long-term investments, in long-term agriculture, like animal production or gardening or other type of agriculture which requires long-term investments. Therefore, we are now most famous by our cereals, and usually this is like a short-term investment, and that's why, due to the fact that we want to develop small farmers, we want to help them, we want to encourage them in long-term agriculture. We want to provide them with all opportunities to be owners of their land. Therefore, we decided that we will lift the moratorium on purchasing land, so that now you can do it via normal transaction. And at starting point, this normal transaction will be available only for natural persons, which is again signal for small farmers. And of course, the debate about land reform in Ukraine is one of hottest and one of most tough. And I think that while the parliamentary debate took place, there were a lot of protests about different solutions, options. And as a result of this discussion, we started with rather moderate opening of transactions in land for natural persons. That's why situation now is calmer, and I think that today farmers are occupied with rather with other problems connected with COVID-19. It's absolutely trivial for the world today, and as well to climate change, because this year we had droughts, rains, and freezes in absolutely in non-applicable times, or the most unpredictable times. Therefore, our harvest was damaged a little bit, fortunately a little bit, but in particular regions of Ukraine, like south of Odessa region, the drought touched the whole sub-region, and it was devastating for the half of particular region.
Perfect. Thank you so much for this explanation. I will get back to the COVID and coronavirus crisis in a second, but before that, just to follow up on that topic, again, from the European investor perspective, when you see, the reform, when the investor sees the reform, he thinks, "Oh, that's great! I can now go and maybe invest in Ukraine, maybe buy a bit of land." But I understand that this is not going to be possible, at least not from the very beginning, because you are actually trying to you want to decide on that in a nationwide referendum, right? So like the right for the foreign investors to buy the land will be decided in the referendum. Is that correct?
Thank you for the question, because the question actually is important due to the fact that the land reform is, as in the first question, you started that your question contained the statement that it was a start of land reform, but in our perspective, this is a completion of land reform. For investment, it's once again, we are not narrowing the possibility for investments. Even today, we have a lot of foreign investments in our agriculture, and agriculture directly connected with arable land. The biggest agri-holding is owned formally owned formally by Luxembourg Holding, and it is an IPO on several stock exchanges with a lot of investments, portfolio investments. So the investments in Ukrainian agriculture are possible, and possibilities are bigger. However, foreigners and foreign companies had no right from 2003, for already 20 years, almost 20 years, had no rights to purchase land directly. So this right was not possible for them before, and it continues to be not available as a direct investment. So it was true many years ago, and can continue to be true. But in our opinion, and government in general, and president and parliament are interested in further liberalization, and we understand how difficult the political debate about it. Therefore, the notion of referendum appeared in this discussion. But it means only that we continue to have strong interest in further liberalization in comparison with the limitation which were imposed in 2003.
So, if I understood correctly, this referendum will happen, but we don't know when yet. Is that what you're saying?
For the moment, there is no schedule. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Just building on that, is that I read some reports that the Ukrainian government is actually now trying to set up a separate ministry just for agriculture. Right now, you deal with everything with trade as well. Is it because you're sort of dealing with this huge reform that you decided to start this new separate ministry?
Just to complete on land reform, I think that the question you asked are connected with the most visible but the smallest part of reform, because the biggest effort are connected with cadastre, with land usage requirements, with other land infrastructure. And currently the government is busy with implementation of other laws which were adopted together with this decision on land turnover. And our ministry is doing quite well. I think that we are following the schedule and intentions. Our discussion about re-establishment of Ministry of Agriculture, I think similar to the agenda of other nations and member states of the EU, since the agriculture faces a lot of long-term and strategic challenges connected with climate change, connected with going greener, less pesticides, more organic, the question connected with climate change and the influence on land, irrigation, etc., etc. Rural development, more involvement of small farmers into big and efficient agricultural output we have in our economy. So now the discussion is about this setting, defining these strategies and priorities, and giving a separate ministry opportunity to work and implement these long-term strategies. So these are the questions which are most important in our discussion about the structure of the government.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I said that I would get back to the topic of the coronavirus crisis, which has obviously been very difficult for the farmers in the EU. I read one news report. I think it was from March or April, so like from the very beginning of the crisis, where you were saying that for Ukrainian agriculture, for the Ukrainian farmers, the coronavirus crisis could actually be a good situation. They could use the coronavirus crisis. That it would be harmful for the industrial production, but not for the agricultural production. The time has passed. Was that the case, or has it been more difficult than expected?
Not in so superlative or bright tones as I suggested several months ago, but in reality we see that our general international trade decreased in lesser volume than, or in lesser share in comparison with EU member states, for example, and we are easily coming back to the level of export we had before the coronavirus appeared on stage. In terms of export of certain cereals like wheat, the last marketing year was quite record one. We exported 20.5 million tons, and for corn it was 30.3 million tons. So indeed, the demand for food is stable and high, and we see that the trade with a certain nation is booming. So with China, for example, or India or Indonesia, and member states as well. So we are of the European Union. But here, I think that the successes of previous year were so big that the actual increase is not so big than in comparison with other states. But indeed, we are exporting cereals on the maximum of our capacity to export. Therefore, I think that my prediction was right, that for Ukrainian agriculture, the situation when food security is so important for many governments, for many economy, is a good chance to ensure that we are a stable supplier, that we can supply big volumes of products, and we managed to do so, and we hope that we will do it in this marketing year for cereals. And despite the certain backlash in terms of forecasts for crops and for harvest for this year.
Let's have a quick look at the Ukrainian-European trade relations. So the Ukraine has been bound with the EU by this association agreement that also includes a deep and comprehensive free trade area. And I would like to ask you, I mean, three years on, how would you assess that? Is this deal working? Are there any challenges from your perspective? How does it look like from your perspective?
The agreement works quite well. This is a big chance, and we used, and the opportunity we used for the benefit of both parties. And of course, now it has some challenges we are going to discuss. So I would like to highlight only two. I think that positive elements, however, the list is quite long. So for agriculture, I think the first success is that association agreement and its trade part was catalyzed the transformation of regulatory field, so that we apply majority EU rules on food safety and including with animal welfare, so that this is the most sensitive element of legislation, which is already, I think, that at the stage of final adoption in our parliament, and I hope that this autumn it will be final voting on this. So we really took over all EU rules on food safety, and it helped us to develop agriculture both domestically with products more safe and better quality for Ukrainian consumers, and as well to promote our products abroad in the EU and our other nations as well. The second big thing, I think, is I call it the integration of Ukrainian and EU agriculture. Of course, it is connected with increase of export of EU products, of Ukrainian agricultural products to the EU. I think that the tempo of increase of trade is quite sufficient, and I think that the figures may be scaring for someone that we are exporting millions of tons of corn and wheat to the EU. But majority of this export is directly connected to the EU agriculture, especially for animal sector. And I usually joke, but this joke is mostly true, that Spanish jamón ibérico is made from Ukrainian corn and then exported to Ukraine, and our consumers like it. So that's why I think that this integration is one of big successes. And I believe that we can build on this despite the challenges. And the challenges are following that. The first one is the certain prejudice towards Ukraine, that Ukrainian is big and damaging for the EU farmers. But as I said previously, it's otherwise. We are supporting EU farmers with supplying feeds and foods which are used and then processed in the EU. Therefore, I think that this is a rather chance than challenge, but it will require a lot of discussions, a lot of let's say conciliation between farmers from both parties, because farmers are quite conservative in terms of assessment, especially of foreign products. And next big thing for future is, of course, the Green Deal and all the surrounding elements. So the greening the agriculture. I think that here we need to have a, let's say, joint debate with the EU, Ukraine-EU debate about the balance between efficiency and greening the agriculture. And of course, we want to share all climate change, but for us it is important to ensure that how we achieve these goals in agriculture in terms of decreasing of usage of pesticides or increasing organic production, because we are number 2 organic supplier for to the EU, and we are going to continue increase the production of organic feed and food to be supplied to the EU. So this is the challenge we want to discuss within the forthcoming review of the agreement. We really want to build further, let's say, trade liberalization together with, let's say, complementarity of domestic policies of Ukraine and the EU in different areas of agriculture, both for for Green Deal and other elements as well.
Yeah, so we had some panelists here today. For example, the Undersecretary of State from the U.S., McKinney, who described the farm to fork, the part of the European Green Deal, in very, very strong words when it comes to the EU-US trade relations. So I understand that the farm to fork, the ambitious pesticides targets, this is for Ukraine something that you might not want to accept that easily in trade relations, right?
I think we have different views. So that we rather say that we can help the EU with achieving these goals because first of all, we can continue to be let's say the anchor supplier of agricultural products, so that to ensure this regional strategic autonomy. We going to continue to follow the EU rules, but what we see as a challenge is finding a balance how fast we can align Ukraine with all rules and all goals declared by the EU. For example, in pesticides. In pesticides, the EU declared the goal to decrease the consumption of pesticides by 50%. But Ukrainian farmers, they currently use twice less pesticides than the European partners. That's why we can say that we already in a tempo that you want to achieve in strategic term. That's why for us it makes no sense to be obliged to decrease, but maybe we can commit not to increase it, and that's why it will be useful for both the climate change goals and efficiency of agriculture. Because as I said previously, EU agriculture also depends on the stability of supplies, including from Ukraine. So that's why efficiency here is not like an opposition to Green Deal and green and climate change goals, but rather complementarity. So that's why for us, we don't treat EU climate change goals as a challenge for Ukrainian agriculture. We rather see it as an opportunity, but in order to ensure that this complementarity, that we help each other, we need to have comprehensive dialogue and comprehensive negotiations with the EU.
Negotiations somehow ongoing. Have you started to talk about this? Yes. Okay. So let me just have one last question. I don't see any questions from the audience. I hope it's not because it's not interesting for the audience. So if you if you would like to ask a question, this is literally your last chance during this conference. And the last question for you, Minister, from me is about your other big neighbor, which is Russia. And I was just wondering, has there been any challenges from the Russian side when it comes to the agriculture recently in Ukraine?
Oh, recently the Russian Federation, absolutely with no justification, no grounds, once again blocked the transit of live animals from through its territory to Central Asia, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and other states from that region. And but it seems that we used already for this unpredictable behavior, and in reality we do not depend on Russia in agriculture. That's why I think that at this stage I don't have a lot to add or to present in this direction. However, I think that for us, we still see that Russia mix geopolitics with agricultural politics or policy, and we see that how they influenced earlier our trade with other members of Eurasian Customs Union, Belarus and Kazakhstan, how Russia under different hidden under different explanation blocked our trade with Central Asia in general. So, but we used to this trick. We believe that it will end some days, because after all, if Russian president aspire for the lift of all trade sanctions, it should first look to Russian policy in agriculture and understand that it is unpredictable and damaging not only for Ukraine, for the EU as well. So that's for EU agriculture as well. And I'm not talking about political sanctions. I'm talking about actually predictability of agricultural policy, food safety policy, etc. Because we have so many examples when, without any reason, the transit or transportation of products are blocked because of certain food safety reasons. You cannot understand which one. So that's, but this is absolutely endless saga. I hope sometimes it will over.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Minister. I think it's been super interesting and enriching to hear your thoughts on so many different subjects. So thank you so much for joining us. And with great sadness from my side, I have to announce that this is the end of this year's summit. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching us. We hope you enjoyed the summit. We hope you had at least a little bit of chance to network with your peers and colleagues virtually this time. And again, I would like to thank our partners, our leading partner, Corteva, and our supporting partner Tetra Pak for making this event possible. And just so you know, we still have quite a lot of events going on despite the circumstances, mainly virtually until the end of the year. And one of them that could be of interest to all of you is the Agriculture and Food Changemakers events with the EU Commissioner for Health and Food Safety, Stella Kyriakides. So be sure to be there with, make sure to be there with us, and make sure to check our future events at politico.eu/events/future events. Thank you very, very much again, and hope to see you soon in the future.